Hello and welcome to my channel. Well, um, at the end of the year, YouTube shows you, in studio and everything, your most viewed videos and all this other stuff. And I recently had a comment from one of those videos, or the video, which is Are Rough Rider Knives Junk Knives My Response? It's my most popular video, and I think it's that way because a lot of people have that question in their mind. Are they junk knives and stuff? But this last comment, I'm not going to mention the person's name or anything. It's not a, I think he had I can tell from the way he wrote his response that he didn't like Rough Rider knives. And for one example, he said is he could cut a 3/4 inch rope with it and it would be dull afterwards. I think that's an exaggeration, and it might point out a couple of things. First, the factory edge on these, this is an older one. The factory edge on a Rough Rider, I have not touched this edge on this one. It's got a good pull on it. They can be inconsistent. You can see, if you get microscopic with it, you can see it's wider here and it's narrow here and it widens out a little bit. I guarantee you I can cut a 3/4 inch rope with this thing and it won't be dull afterwards. That's one thing in arguing. There's a tendency to go to an extreme to prove a point. Now, I have gotten Rough Rider knives that were not sharp out of the box, but guess what? I know how to sharpen knives. It's not an issue with me if a $15 knife is not sharp. I was just looking at this one the other day and thinking, I could not do this well for $15. Now, a spoiler alert, the whole thing behind the original video, the whole point I'm making is that you can't sit there and say that these are not, on average, considering how many they're making and stuff, good quality knives at whatever price. They're inexpensive. That's a big draw to it, but they're good quality knives on the most part. Yes, there are bad ones here and there. And the person that was talking to me back and forth about it, this is why I like a good disagreement, is because you can learn something from the other person or trying to refute their point. And finally, he came down to, it was like the heat treatment. They're not heat treating them properly or something like that. Well, that could be a case. That could be a situation. But I researched. I looked at the 440A is much easier to heat treat than D2. If you get D2, it's got narrower parameters. Anytime you got something that's got narrower parameters, you got people that got to follow instructions closer. You got machines that got to be, a higher tolerance. There's procedures got to be followed. All that can be messed up. But if you've got a wide range of heat treat, like you can air cool this or oil cool it, you give people a couple of options, and they can still get it right. 440A, from what I'm reading, is not that hard to work with for heat treating and stuff. But the maximum Rockwell hardness of 440, I'm doing this from memory, reading it, I'll put the stuff up there, is 58 on the Rockwell scale. Now, it has, of the 400, the 440 series, it has the lowest carbon content. And anytime you lower the carbon content, in this case, it increases the stainless resistance. And I can guarantee you, from trying to get 440A to stain when it was being sold as T10, which is a carbon steel, that it is very, very stainless resistant. I mean, it was in salt water vinegar for days, and I tried everything, mustard and all kinds of corrosives on it. And the most I got was a light gray sheen that, I mean, you couldn't even tell it was there afterwards. So the thing is, the whole point of this is, it's not our Rough Rider knives, junk knives. It's 440A a junk steel. And I was watching Zach's in the Wild and Ben from Blade HQ a video, and they were in there and they were testing 8CR13 MOV, which gets slammed a lot of times as being, you know, cheap steel and all this other stuff. And the thing is, the steels are performing up to their specifications, you know, is what it says. It doesn't say it's going to hold its edge forever, but there are a lot of advantages to a steel. It's easy to sharpen on one of these, but it also will not hold an edge forever, you know. My thought is that if you're taking a pocket knife in to do something that's going to require a lot of cutting and stuff every day, find the steel that works best for you. If you don't like to sharpen or you can't sharpen, maybe one of the harder edge retention holding knives is going to work for you. But when it gets dull, you better have a way of sharpening it or sending it off or getting another knife, because sooner or later you're going to find, if you collect knives and stuff, that knowing how to sharpen comes in handy. Knowing how to sharpen a knife, it doesn't have to be hair whittling, but for me, that was my goal when I was first sharpening knives. I could get a working edge. I didn't know the concept, you know, holding the bevel the same, you know, and there were no guiding things that I knew of back then. It was just a whetstone, and you saw your grandpa going back and forth like this, and if he knew what he was doing, it would come out sharp, you know. But a lot of times they wouldn't tell you, and you're a kid, you're just looking over their shoulder and peering, you don't always know. I had a father, but he was in the military. He was career military, so he wasn't there all the time. I didn't have these father-son talks that a lot of people had. So I had to figure a lot of stuff out on my own, and I didn't get a lot of it right, you know. But when I eventually figured out how to get a knife hair shaving sharp, I figured, wow, if I'd have known this when I was a kid. But you know what? A working edge worked for me the whole time. And the steels that we had were usually like carbon and everything. Now a carbon steel, it's closer to like, you know, like 1095 or 10 whatever. It's 1% carbon in it. So it's not going to be stainless. It's gonna rust. And like this one's got a weak back spring on it and everything, but it's just a good example of what I would get if I were a kid, if I needed a knife, you know. Saber, made in Japan. This is a little bit later model, but yeah, I'd sharpen it. And these things are thin and slicey. So yeah, I could try, you know, testing one of these and finding out what it is and everything, but it's gonna be less than D2. It's gonna be less than your whiz bang super steels and everything, but it's a pretty tough steel. It's fairly easy to sharpen. So if the interval is not cut, you know, 3/4 inch rope and it's dull, yeah, I wouldn't carry a knife if it couldn't handle that, or I wouldn't use that knife for that. That's another thing I was going to say is it's a pocket knife, right? You know, you should have, if you're doing a heavy duty task, you should have a heavy duty knife for whatever the heck you're doing, you know. If you're out on a boat, you know, get a rope knife, you know, with a big, long, wide, you know, hawkbill or something, you know. Or If you got big tasks, get a big knife. Got a lot of big spaying operations going on, or you got a lot of big, speak softly, carry a big stick. Yeah, it's all for what it's needed, you know. Do you need super edge retention? I got crap all over my hand from picking that one up. I set a cooking pot over there recently. You know how soot gets, but anyways, it's not hand model violation. Oh my God, he's violated. He's not pristine. Do you need super edge retention for something that you're going to be cutting thread, or, you know, you're probably not going to cut a steak unless nowadays you would. Beef not being allowed. Bad. Beef bad. You eat bug. Bug better. Sorry. Trying to be serious. Yeah. It's all what it's used for. And 440A is not a junk steel. Neither is HCR 13 MOV. Neither is OS 8. Now you start getting to some of the lower ones, it does get kind of annoying, you know, like I'm trying to like 5 CR, whatever it is, but yeah, you're getting down there where, yeah, they eventually you get to the point where it used to be this way. Novelty knives, you know, were about the lowest grade steel you could get. And one of the cheapest knife you could get. Gene Autry with Champion. Whoa! He just threw him. See, there's no rider in that horse. The guy's gone. The horse is celebrating. Ride me. Put this crap all over me. I want to be free. I'm a champion. Yeah. Anyway, it's all on what it's for, you know? What are your expectations of a knife? If your job requires you to cut rope every day, and you complain and moan because your $15 knife didn't go up to the task, well, you know what? There's an error in your thinking process. If the company is not supplying you with the tool to do your job, then you should supply your own. And if one of the main requirements is edge retention, then don't go for 440A. But that doesn't mean it's a junk steel. That doesn't mean it's trash. Yeah, it's inexpensive, you know, for dealers to purchase. It's readily available. It's easy to work with. It can get messed up if they don't heat treat it. I looked at, you watch some of the sweatshop workshops over in Pakistan and stuff like that, where they're working on knives. And yeah, man, if you don't quench that blade when you're putting that edge on it and you're taking a lot of steel off, that thing starts getting cherry red, and you haven't quenched it, yeah, you're annealing the edge. It's going to be soft. But I don't think they're doing that in Rough Rider in their factory on that. But again, I don't know Rough Rider. I just bought the stuff. I'm not sponsored by them. I've never met, you know, the owners. I've never gone to China. Korea and Japan is the closest I've got, and Philippines. But yeah, and I don't like communism. Spoiler alert, I was in the U.S. military for 6 years during the Cold War, where one of the mottos was kill a commie for mommy. You know, so I'm no fan of communism as a form of how people interact with each other, as a government and stuff like that. Just put that out there in case somebody thought I was a lefty or whatever you want to label me as. But anyway, in the end, I'm not trying to convince that guy. I didn't try to convince him that he should buy Rough Rider knives. He can buy whatever he wants. You know, he had a list of specific types of knives he would buy. Case, I got case knives. Solid in Germany, I got solid in Germany. You know what? My list is not limited, because I haven't limited myself based on ideology or whatever. And the problem with the people that are trying to say that it's communism and you're supporting communism when you buy a $15 knife, is they're usually writing on a phone or a computer or a laptop that was made in China. And the irony never crosses their mind. It just goes right over their head. Whoosh. Here's how I'm going to get them on. You're supporting communism. You know what? You're supporting communism 1,000 more times than I am by saying that. So what's your point? Come on, come up with something good. That's not a good argument. Eventually, yes, eventually everybody's going to hate China, and manufacturing sweatshops are going to pop up in Vietnam and India and lots of places where they have cheap labor and very good labor laws for manufacturers and less for the people. That's the way it's always been. I'm sorry. If you want to go over to India and protest, go over to China and protest. See how far that gets you. This is America. And on my channel, just like that, this guy kept it civilized and everything else. And I had, I learned something from it because I went back and I said, why do I like 440A steel? I don't particularly. I like 440C better. 440C isn't as stainless as 440A, but it holds an edge a little bit better. And yeah, edge retention, the longer you go between having to sharpen your knife is a good thing if possible, but there's an extreme to it. You can take it to where you say that I'm never going to buy a knife of this style or this steel because I don't like that. Why? Well, because, whatever their reason is. Maybe it's popularity. It's popular to bash a lower grade steel. Or maybe they just bought something in S35VN or whatever, and they're really happy with that. Good, so am I. I've got knives like that too. I'm still going to buy knives in 440A and B and C and VG10 and AUS-8 and HCR13 MOV. And like I said, my lower limit is when the numbers start dropping on those Chinese steels, 5 and below. And Pakistan steels, the unknown mystery steels, a lot of times you get, yeah, the knife looks good and everything, but it was never heat treated. Heat treatment is a very necessary thing in a steel. It's the difference between like a butter knife and a real knife. A lot of times a butter knife was not designed to hold an edge. It was designed to be a flat piece of steel to spread butter around on. So in the end, I don't care what you buy or what your philosophy is, or whether you think I'm a patriot or not. I know who I am. I know what I've done, and for my country, and what my country's done for me. So there's no issue on that particular point. And as far as the steels, if you want to limit yourself and say I'll never get a knife in this thing, all right, it's going to cost you more money for that. And if that turns out to be snobbery, then what does that gain you? It's like the rich flaunting, look, I've got a Lamborghini, and you peons are driving around in those Hyundais and Volkswagens and Honda Civics. So lower class. Do we like that? I don't like people like that, Yeah, it's fine if you got money. You might as well spend it and show off that you got money, that you spend it. But does that make me want to hang out with you? No. Sorry. You've lost my world. My world is the lower affordable things, when it starts getting way up there in the stratosphere, have fun with that. I was rich too at one time. Compared to my entire life, I was rich, and yeah, was I any more happy? Yeah, it was nice not to worry about money. But anyways, like I said, you're free to whatever you want to think, everything, and my argument was that The people that argue against, that say that these are cheap Chinese junk, the zinger right there is Chinese. You know, you could have just said cheap junk if that was your issue. But when you throw in Chinese, you kind of throw your hand out there. Anyways, like I said, you know, it's no bother to me what you buy or you know what you like and everything, but you know, to pass up knives, just because you got a bias, that doesn't mean everybody else has to. All right, you know, this is America. Wherever you're at, hopefully you have a right to have your own opinion and your own thoughts, and you can buy whatever. You're not forced by the state to buy a certain knife only, you know, or things like that. If you have freedom of choice, use it, you know, while you still have it, because I'm going to continue to buy knives like this, and I think that they're good quality for the money, and yeah, that's about as far as it goes. I don't get into the political part of it and stuff. If you want to, like I said, there's my older video of my response of what I thought, and I haven't, you know, redone it or anything, but one time I revisit it just to, you know, see if there's anything that's changed, and not really, you know. So thank you for watching, and have a nice day.